everyone. They're putting us up on YouTube right now, so we're just going to get started here in just a minute. Jeremy, if you could just switch me back to host. There we go. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and get started this morning. I see we have Councilmember Brady with us, who's going to be speaking to y'all in just a minute. So good morning and welcome to the city's first open day today. And it's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you our Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Carl Brady, who represents District 5, which includes all of Johns Island and portions of Outer West Ashley. Councilmember Brady currently serves on the city's Traffic and Transportation Committee, the Human Resources Committee, the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and the West Ashley Vitalization Committee. Councilmember Brady, we're really glad to have you this morning and allow you to welcome everyone to Open Day today. And I'm going to open it up to you. Floor is all yours.
Great. Great. Thank you, Tracy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for attending the City of Charleston's first Open Data Day program. In January 2021, City Council unanimously adopted an open data policy that memorializes our pledge to an open and transparent government, provides a framework for proactively releasing data, and provides a framework to ensure we are good stewards of our citizens' data. Most importantly, information is knowledge capital, and an open data policy ensures that all of our citizens have access to that capital. Today, you will hear from a number of city staff about how open data is leveraged within the organization and how it can help tell a story and drive decision-making. In our Spotlight applications, you'll see two applications that are being officially launched today, which is exciting. One is a racial equity story map that uses historic maps and open data to look at how race has shaped our city and recent efforts to address racial inequities. The second is an affordable housing dashboard that provides a real-time assessment of the city's affordable housing inventory. I know that you will find today's program informative and hope that next year we will be able to showcase projects built by the public with the city's open data. Back to you, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Brady. So again, good morning, everybody, and I really thank everybody for attending today's Open Data program, the first ever for the City of Charleston, which is super exciting. And so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tracy McKee, and I'm the city's Chief Innovation Officer. Just a couple of little quick housekeeping things. For attendees, please use the Q&A to submit questions at any time during the program. Our team will be monitoring those to address your questions after each presentation is made. And then when you leave the webinar, you should receive a link to a survey about today's program. So please take a few minutes to share your thoughts with us, because we want to make this even better next year for everyone. So I really can't tell y'all how excited I am about today. I feel like, a primary focus of my entire career has been trying to provide a peek under the hood of how local government operates through access to data. I'm also really bursting with pride today because of the amazing staff that you're going to hear from. They're extraordinary public servants, and I'm so glad that they're getting the opportunity to share their work and bring some sunshine to these applications they've brought to life. So how do we get here? When I started with the city, just a little bit of background, the city's data was only available to anyone that was willing to pay for it. Spent a lot of time working to break down the silos between government agencies so we could freely exchange data. We used to charge each other for data. It was really hard to have access to that data. I also worked to develop the first version of MapNet, which I believe you'll see today if you haven't seen it already, which provided city staff with web-based access to the city's GIS data. This was the first step in so we could stop asking citizens what color their garbage can was so we knew whether they were in the city or not, or whether they're a resident or not. Today, MapNet is still used internally, and there's a public-facing version as well, if you haven't seen it yet. Finally, we got to 2013, where we finally launched the city's first data portal. It's primarily GIS data, but it was built in-house, and that was really kind of the first time we started providing data freely to the public. In 2016, the city became an active member of the White House Police Data Initiative, also called PDI. The purpose of that program was to really encourage joint problem solving, spark innovation, enhance understanding and accountability between communities and those law enforcement agencies. As Councilmember Brady mentioned, almost a little bit over a year ago, in January of 2021, Charleston City Council unanimously adopted an open data policy. So why is open data important? First of all, Councilmember Brady alluded to some of these. The public has a right to see records that are not sensitive or protected. And another big thing is information is knowledge capital. We want all of our citizens to have access to that. Open data can also help to stimulate new ideas, new services, improve service delivery, and it can also be used within the community to help solve community problems. Another big thing for city staff, and hopefully a benefit to the public, is it can reduce FOIA requests or Freedom of Information Act requests. Those requests, fulfilling those requests can take a long time, but if that information is readily available to the public, that can really reduce staff time so that they can actually be working to provide the services that go to everyone. Silos within government are real. So having open data can also help break down those internal silos. We don't always know what other departments have. And so understanding what that looks like can really increase our internal data sharing and really help citizens in the long run. Sharing data can be a little scary, right? We know no data set is perfect. And so there's always a little fear in sharing it. But the exciting thing is when people start using it, you start to get feedback on that data and understand where there might be errors, and we can improve the data quality. Most importantly, to me, I think it helps build trust with the community that we're here to serve. So before we had this policy, we were already proactively doing a number of things. So why do we need a policy? Councilmember Brady touched on this too. This allows us to make sure that it's not dependent upon the people that are here today to have this open and transparent government. So how do we make sure that when all of us that are on this panel today have gone, that the city is still has that commitment to an open and transparent government? It also holds us to a standard to actively release data that is ready for public consumption. And most importantly, it provides a framework so that we are good stewards of the citizens' data. So what does that mean? We're trying to, publish data. So that doesn't mean that we're running around over the last year and just trying to put everything that we have out there for the public. That's definitely the long-term plan, but it's a very thoughtful and a very deliberate mechanism in how we get there. So the first piece of the puzzle for our policy was for each department to identify an open data coordinator. All those open data coordinators make up the open data management team in the city. That team helped build the city's first data inventory. And as we go through that inventory, we're also categorizing that data. You can see from the matrix at the bottom here, on the left-hand side, we have, what's this current status of the data? Is it ready for public consumption? Does it contain sensitive or even protected information? And then on the x-axis, what's the demand? Is this something that we get a lot of FOIA requests for? Is it something that is often requested as a data set? So where does it fall on that spectrum of low, medium, and high as far as demand goes? And then, of course, what do these priorities mean? So we have these categories from P1 to P4. Right now, we're really focused on anything that's in that P1 category, meaning it's probably already ready for public consumption, doesn't contain sensitive or protected information, and it's something that we get FOIA requests for a lot. And so those are going to be our highest priorities to put out first. And once we identify these data sets, they do go through a legal review to make sure that we're not releasing something that's not sensitive or protected. And we also work with IT for both infrastructure and to make sure that the data can be automatically released so that we don't rely on a particular human to remember to actually push out that data set every so often, whatever that interval needs to be. So making sure that it can be an automated process. So at the beginning of this year, we actually released our first data inventory. This can be found on the innovation website, and there's the URL is at the top there. You can actually do a search in the search bar for keywords, and any of these fields can be sorted on. The next iteration of this inventory that we're currently working on is that anything that is already published will actually have the web link or URL associated with it. So you can go directly to the data source once you find it in the inventory. So what's next? What's coming for the open data policy and open data? So on the left-hand side, we have, kind of where we started from, creating our open data management team, which is already in place, conduct our initial data inventory, which is I would say 90% done based off of departmental compliance. And now we're starting to enter this annual data review cycle. So we've categorized our data. And so now we need to look at those P1 data sets, have a legal review. Are they ready to be published? And from that, then departments will create what we're calling a data publishing plan. So once they have that plan in place, it's gone through a legal review. In May, I'll actually give an update. Annually, I have to give a report to council on our progress on our open data policy. And in that will be everyone's publishing plans. And so then May through November, we'll be working to publish those that have been identified as the highest priority to be published. This could range from 0 to maybe 5 or more data sets by department. It's going to depend on how easy is it to automate the process, and what's its categorization, right? So, and we want to be realistic about what we can actually achieve within a given year, given resource constraints. Then in December, January, we'll actually come back and look at our inventory again, make sure that it's current. We don't need to, something hasn't been retired, or new data systems haven't come online, and we'll make sure that we add those. So we'll refresh that inventory on an annual basis, and then we kind of continue this process. And so that's kind of how we got here today, and where we are with our open data program. And I think next up, we're going to switch over to Robert Hauk, who's going to be sharing a little bit about GIS and its role in open data.
Thanks, Tracy. Yep, my name's Robert Hauk. I'm the director of GIS. We're a division within the IT department. And I'm here because a lot of the city's data, that you interact with it, a lot of it through GIS. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what GIS is, and then specifically talk about some of our data, where we get it from, and how we keep it up to date, to kind of give you a background of what goes on behind some of the apps that are going to be highlighted later. Our affordable housing dashboard and the racial equity story map. So it's a little bit of a background. Let's get started. So first, what is GIS? Stands for Geographic Information System. I guess the important part is geographic, that this is information that we know where it is. It has a location. It's usually tied to an address or maybe a parcel of land. And the neat thing about attaching a location to a piece of data is you can start to do things like you can compare it to data in another data set. Is this house in a flood zone? Or you can analyze the data and look for patterns. You can compare data sets. So there's all sorts of analysis type things you can do once we know where things are. But the key is information system. It's the analysis is neat, but you can't really do any of that unless you have a solid information system. And so what does that mean? That I think it's super important that our information system is, one, reliable, that when you need to find data, it's there and it's ready. It needs to be fast, that especially web apps, a slow web app is it's almost not worth having, that people want data quick. So that we try to keep all of our apps super responsive. And the data needs to be current, that our parcel data, that you don't want parcels from last year, you want as recent as possible. And then the last one is accessible. We've got staff around the city that are pretty good with the desktop GIS software to do kind of heavy analysis, but most of our users access the data through simple web apps, and we try to make them as easy and as simple to use as possible, so the data is accessible to everybody. The kind of one of the most important parts of the GIS system, kind of as I said, is we want to give easy access to the data, and we do that through, we still make a few paper maps, but more often now it's through web apps, and that the current technology makes it super easy to make these web apps that used to take programmers and weeks of coding to put stuff together, but now you can make a pretty complicated, impressive web apps just in a few minutes. Just throw some stuff together. And then dashboards, they're special kind of websites that helps highlight things in the data that you can summarize. You can look at how many things happen over time, pick out specific things in the data and show that in just a kind of a condensed format. And then story maps are they're a way to tell a story with maps. And we're going to look at a dashboard and a story map today. That affordable housing app is a dashboard, and then our racial equity project is a story map. And then we also have APIs that allow other GIS people to have direct access to the data, that we have published web services, and that actually our open data portal allows programmers to get the API access, so they can just get the data directly into their apps. So what data do we have? First, it's GIS data, that we're the source. And of all of our data, that the GIS division really doesn't create much of it. But what we do create is important, that it's kind of the foundation of that everything else builds on, that we maintain the street center lines, addresses, our zoning layers, municipal boundaries, just a few others that we really don't create a lot of data in GIS. That most of our data nowadays, it's coming from other places in the city. And these are separate databases from GIS. So, the police have their own data store, fire department has their own data, permitting has a huge database, and then our work order system. So these are all outside of GIS, but we bring that data into GIS so you can work with data from all these systems through GIS, and I'll kind of walk you through how that happens next. And then we also have third-party data. Big one's county data, that the counties maintain the parcel boundaries and the tax records. And it's important that we have up-to-date data from them. So we have process to get that data every week. Then we also get data from NOAA, FEMA, National Weather Service, Census, DHEC, and just lots of others. So how does all this outside data get into the GIS? We're going to learn a buzzword today, ETL. I'm not even sure if it's a buzzword anymore. It's kind of an old buzzword, probably new buzzwords that I don't know. But so what does that mean, ETL? Extract, transform, load. So what does that mean? Well, let's walk through each one. We use an example of permit data out of our permit system. So this is an outside database, completely outside of GIS. So we have an automated ETL process that turns those permit records into GIS data every night. And kind of walk you through how that happens. So we've got the permit database, and we've got a GIS staging database where we kind of build the data before we publish it. And luckily, these databases can talk to each other. So we have our database asks the permitting database, hey, can I get your permit records? He's pretty nice. He says, sure. And he sends it over. So that's our extract. That's getting the data. And that data can come from another database, or it can come from something in the cloud. We even have some processes that scrape the text off websites. So that extract part, it can lots of different things. Then usually the data we get, it's not GIS data yet, or it needs to be cleaned. It's not formatted right. So we have processes that manipulate the data. Maybe remove some fields we don't need, or things of that nature. And we do that through these little ETL programs, usually with Python, the scripting language, which sounds scary, but it's really not. That the hard part's first finding out what you got to do, but the actual programming, so it's not too bad anymore. So our ETL program in this case for the permit data, that we need to add an XY so we can put it on maps. So we get that XY from our address points, that every permit has an address. So we compare that to the GIS address, get the XY and attach it. So after that, we can, it's GIS data. And then, yeah, of course, we filter and format. There's, maybe voided permits that we don't want that in our data, that they're not relevant. So we strip those out. And this is a pretty simple example, but some of these transform steps that can have 50 or more steps. And a good example is our parcel data, that we get parcels from Berkeley County and Charleston County, and their fields don't match. The data is formatted differently, and we have a script that kind of merges it all together into a seamless file. And then last is load, and that is actually getting the data into either the GIS system, or in this case, the open data portal. So our little Python program says we need to send it to the open data portal, and then he says, okay. And so that's exactly how some of this GIS data gets into the open data portal, that we turn it in GIS data, and then every 7 days, most of the GIS data sets get published to the open data portal, and that's all an automatic process. And here's what it looks like in the open data portal. That it's there and ready to go. All 11,760 permits, and those are just new construction permits, going back 10 years. So, kind of cool. And that's this is new. Yeah, and he says wake me up in 7 days, I'll do it again. This is new in open data portals as of last week, that you used to have to do a FOIA request to get this data, and it probably would take time, staff time, to query it. And even then, this includes goes back 10 years, so it includes data from 2 permitting systems. So this is kind of exciting that we got this out there. So we have now it's almost 30 of these processes that run, and it got to the point that it was hard to maintain and manage. That a data set would stop updating, and usually somebody would complain, hey, this data is not updating. And the reason that happens is these ETL processes they're super complicated, and it kind of relies on other people's data staying static. And of course, stuff changes. The counties are notorious for changing the formats of their tables. So we need to know when stuff broke. So we have this system now that when each of these processes run, we can it sends an email if something breaks, but we can just at a glance look to see the last time data was updated, and whether it worked or not. And importantly, if it's out of date, that in this database, we've got how fresh data should be. And if a script hasn't run in a certain amount of time, it will show up as out of date. And that's important because some of these processes are run manually. So this alerts you, oh, heck, I need to go do that. And that one failed is a weather station that Woolpert manages out at Church Creek. And I'm not sure why it's failing. I worked on it the other day, and I haven't quite fixed it yet, but it gets real-time rain data. And yeah, some of these processes are overnight. A lot of them are overnight, but we've got some that run every 2 minutes, that we get tide and weather data every 2 minutes. So how do we work with the data? Apps, dashboards, and story maps. You can get to a lot of these apps from the GIS website. If you Google City of Charleston GIS, it'll bring you here. And we've got, as Tracy mentioned, MapNet. We've got zoning data, road closure data. Just honestly, it's there's a lot of stuff out there, and everything's not on this website. That's something that needs to be worked on. It's hard to discover some of the stuff that we have out there. So that's a mission this year, is to get one web page that lists all of our apps and kind of in categories. So look for that this year. Yeah, just run through quickly these apps. That for general information, MapNet's great. This is for our citizens. That it's just one click and just get some basic information about a property. So what does it have? When you click a parcel, you get a link directly to the county tax record. So you can get your tax bill, the current assessed value, ownership, stuff like that. The scan survey, which is this is the easiest way to get a survey for a property. That the county has a really great site that lets you search for plats, but it's not as quick and easy as this. The only caveat is we don't have all plats. So if something's not here, it doesn't mean that there's not a recorded survey for your property, but you might have to go to the county for it. Zoning data, your trash collection day, recycling day. Recycling is coming directly from the county GIS system. Your nearest fire station, your council member, flood zones, and recently you can directly get your elevation certificate if it's in our new document management system. That box at the bottom will actually open up the PDF of that elevation certificate. And that's another thing that used to be a lot of staff time. You'd have to request it and wait on it, and staff would have to process it. So that was a big thing that happened last year. We've got real-time apps. I always like to plug tie-dye. So this is one of those ETL processes that runs every 2 minutes, and it gets data from all these data sources. We got the Weather Service, Earth Networks, which is our weather stations, Woolperk's another weather station. Dark Sky, Apple's turning Dark Sky off because they bought Dark Sky, thanks Apple. So we're gonna switch to Tomorrow IO, and these are their weather forecast websites. Ways that we collect Waze data every 2 minutes that we can. One of the things that Tie-Dye does is it monitors for flood alerts. You know, if we get more than 2 Waze users reporting flooding, it'll send emails to us to alert us, hey, we got something going on. And so anyways, Tie-Dye gets all this information, puts it on one screen. And if you live in Charleston, I highly recommend having this on your phone, pin it to your home screen, and it turns purple and when bad things are coming. So you can get an idea if we've got some bad king tides coming up. And it monitors rain and even wind speed. So it's like during a tropical storm, you can monitor the wind gusts from several spots around the city using our weather stations. Then we've got focused apps. These are apps that kind of just show you one thing. This is a lot of this stuff Tracy built, you know, that this is a long storied history for a lot of these apps. Actually, Emma made this one, but the original idea was Tracy to get this data out there so people could see it. So this is kind of neat. There's all the pools being built in the city, you know. So which I saw this last night. I said, wow, it's a lot of pools out there. Dashboard. So this is taking that new construction data set that we looked at earlier, and it shows you information about it. That we've got the number of new construction permits by year. We've got how many in each zip code, area of the city, the flood zone they're in. And this is interesting that you can click on each year and kind of see at one point West Ashley was the hotspot for development, and then it slowly transitions to Johns Island and Daniel Island. So that's kind of the stuff you can do with data. What's next? Oh, story maps. Story map walks you through something, and it's just another plug for one of my favorite apps that we built. That this story map tries to explain how the tide is measured. You know, what is a 7-foot tide? What is that measured from? I won't get into it here, but we got the story map that we'll try to explain that to you. So that's it for me now. So that's just a quick overview of GIS, and I hope you kind of learned a little bit about what goes into the data that's kind of driving these really cool apps that are going to be showed off next. And that I'm going to be back later to walk you through the actual open data portal. And so anyways, I'll be back. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe. That's it for
Awesome.
me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. That was great. This is unheard of in the history of anything with the city. But love to, we're like ahead of schedule. So I want to invite anyone who might have some questions to go ahead and put them in the Q&A. If you have any for me or Robert about things you've heard already. I know Chloe has been absolutely amazing at responding. And maybe it will offer, let's see. So one of the good questions, and I think Chloe answered it, but what kind of community problems can open data solve? And I think Chloe hit it right on the head, the nail on the head. It's, really from everything to flooding, housing, code enforcement. How do we improve service delivery? I mean, I think so challenge kind of to any developers or researchers, data scientists that might be attending today, what's something that you're passionate about, and, let us know if there's some data that you think that we have that could be useful for something that you're interested to dive in on. I see. I'm going to actually let Robert respond to this one. So Katie's asking, how did Robert get his face on the slide? Super cool.
I have a 13-year-old that wants to be a famous YouTuber, so it's all free software anyway.
So maybe you can put that free software information in the chat for everyone.
Oh yeah,
so
sure.
you clearly have some fans.
It's software called OBS.
OBS. Okay.
Yep.
And then there's a question, is there one place to find the various apps? I think that Chloe sent out a link to that gis.charleston-sc.gov. That's probably the place that has the most comprehensive list of apps. It definitely has all of the GIS apps. And I believe that things that GIS knows about in the city are made available there. So that's probably the number one place to start. We are working on having any applications that are built with open data, providing those links as well on the open data site on innovation. So be on the lookout for that to come as well. Let's see. And then there's a question, if the PDI Charleston-sc.opendata is part of the Open Data Project. Yes, it is. And that was really born out of that 2016 engagement with the White House Police Data Initiative. That was kind of how that came to be. PD has a wonderful team of data analysts that have really done a great job on getting really policing data out into the wild, if you will. So yeah, that is definitely part of our city's open data. So what changes have you seen that the data is free to the public? I think I understand what you're asking. I think, probably, one great thing is just having it out there. And this is probably more on the application side. Robert and I often talk about how interesting it is that we love it when we hear that something's broken, because that means that people are actually using it. So that is usually, it sounds like it would be a terrible thing that would make you stress out, but it actually kind of makes you smile because you're like, oh, people are using this, that they recognize that it's broken. I'm hoping that today's program and things that we do in the future really bring awareness that this data is out there for the community to access, and give you ideas on maybe how you, as in your role, either as a city employee, can actually use open data, or from the public can help us use open data to solve real world problems.
Hey Tracy, I got a quick comment.
Yeah, please.
Last night I was trying to get a sense of the number of web apps we have in ArcGIS Online. So I downloaded a report that had all of our apps, and our open data portal is actually an app. And it is, what do you think our most used app is in all of ArcGIS Online? It is our open data portal, 126,000 visitors. So that blew my mind. I had no idea that it's the #1 app so people are using this, which means, yeah, we need to take care of it more. That it's amazing that it beat road closures by 20,000 people.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't think I would have guessed that either. So especially knowing how much traffic our road closure app actually gets during an event. So
Yep.
That's fantastic. Anything, I don't want to, if anyone else on the panel has some comments, please jump in at any time. So another couple of questions here. Thank you, Scott, for sharing the OBS project link into the question. So thank you for that. The next question is it updated frequently? So the last time they looked in February, there was no data for 2022. This is a great question, Stephanie. One of the things that we are working through kind of with the inventory is how frequently should a certain data set be published? And that's something that will be part of that inventory and will dictate kind of how frequently. And for every data set, it's different. As Robert mentioned, some of these things get updated nightly, but some things it may not make sense to actually update nightly because it does require some CPU power and those kinds of tech resources that may not be worth it. So it's really kind of dependent upon what the data source is, if that makes sense. Robert, or anybody else, do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, the goal is to automate as much as possible, but to be able to automate, it takes a lot of time to set all that up. It takes talented programmers to get it all working. So that's the reason some stuff isn't just out there already. It just takes a lot of time to set up the automation to publish things and make sure everything's right.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't let perfection get in the way of progress, right? But there's also, we also want to be careful and make sure that we're putting out there, the best that we possibly can too. So it's striking that balance. And unless someone else on the team wants to address this now, I'm going to put off this next question. Hopefully they're going to get to see the story map coming up. But the question is, how does the city of Charleston plan to use this for racial equity work? So if somebody, please feel free to jump in, but I'd like to hold that question until after our spotlight applications, because hopefully they're going to be able to talk a little bit about that in their presentation.
And another quick comment about data being out of date, that there's some things that you need to alert us about, that there might be something that is out of date, that we've got hundreds and hundreds of data sets, and almost all of it is open, even if it's not published in the open data portal, that if it's requested, that I can probably get access to it, or if something needs to be updated, that it could probably be updated. The only data that isn't open data is usually because it's third-party data. That most third-party data we're not able to release, like, for example, the county parcels, that they kind of keep a tight lid on that. So it's an example of stuff we can't share. So.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Good thing to add in there, that we don't have the ability to share absolutely everything that we have because it's not ours. We don't own it. So the last question I'm seeing here is, does MapNet provide real-time current data about parcels? So Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your team has built a process that does it run weekly for parcels, or is it now overnight?
Yeah, it's weekly. So we have whatever the county has on their website, we get every week. So it's up to date.
Great, thanks. Great questions. Thank you for putting all those into the Q&A. Anything else? I'll invite the rest of the team. Anybody have any follow-up comments for? Okay, well, hearing nothing else, give everybody a little break. You can go refill your coffee, and we'll be back here at around 5 till, but we'll definitely start no later than 10 o'clock. And so look forward to seeing you all in just a few minutes. Thanks so much. I hope everyone was able to get another cup of coffee or refill their water on a little break. We'll get started in just a minute, 9:59. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Glad to see we didn't really lose anybody over the break. So thanks for coming back to join us. I think this is the this is going to be, I think, the highlight for me, hearing from these teams in our spotlight applications. Up first, you're going to hear from a team that worked to develop a racial equity story map. And that story map official launch is today. So no one's really seen this story map yet. So I'm really excited for the team to be able to share their journey and their work with you and tell you all about the racial equity story map. So I'm going to turn it over to the team now.
Good morning. My name is Amber Johnson. I am the Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation Manager for the city, and I'm really excited to share with you our racial equity mapping tool that we've been working on for a while. So I think it's important to know that in my time in the city, I've learned that what gets measured gets managed. We've been having a lot of conversation recently about racial equity and what that looks like in our city, but not a lot of conversation about the data and the inequities that exist throughout the city. So I think this tool gives us an opportunity to start to have those discussions, not only internally, but with our community partners. In order for transformation to occur, an understanding of our racialized history is required. There are specific past and current policies, procedures, practices, and budget decisions that result in disparate outcomes by race. A mapping tool such as this is critical for us to use for change to occur. Our most recent comprehensive plan for the first time includes conversations around equity. And it was during those conversations that we decided that we wanted to pursue a project like this. I had seen a tool in Asheville, and I went to Chloe from planning and showed it to her, and she told me that we had the data, and it was something that we could do. It was an opportunity for us to build a product for the city. So during the project created an opportunity for us to learn about the where when looking at statistics about history, race, and economic gaps. In our organization, learning, talking, and analysis about the where is how we solve problems and how we create change. And having equity data in our GIS means that it's accessible and allows us to integrate into everything we do as an organization, which will help us reach our equity goals. We know that local government played a role in creating and maintaining inequities, and it's our responsibility to be a part of the solution. So when you go to this mapping tool, we start with creating a background of definitions, giving you the history of how local government participated in creating these inequities, and then we can walk you through the maps, which we'll do during this presentations. Those maps include conversations about population change, displacement, neighborhood change. There's also a racial equity timeline that we'll show you as we walk you through this process. And then at the end of the map, there are additional resources and then access to the open data that we hope to be able to build upon. And then there are some tools in there already. So I will pass it along. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Amber. My name's Casey Conrad. I'm a GIS analyst here at the city. And I'm gonna show you the story map, but one thing I'd like to point out that the idea of the story map, as Robert kind of mentioned, is that it can sort of stand alone to tell a story about everything. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. There's a lot of information in there. What I want to highlight is some of the maps and the map functionality, because the point is that they're really interactive. So we want people to read through all the information, but then also click around and interact with it. So I'm going to share my screen here. And let's see. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay, excellent. So this is the story map. Like Amber said, there's some definitions in the beginning, so we're all starting on the same page. We've got some history, and these images can all expand. There's links throughout here. There's links to some other tools we made. I'm gonna highlight this one, displacement tool. There's some figures, some charts. These came from the city plan, the Charleston city plan. And then we get down here to the maps. So these first few are dealing with population. This is census data, and our developer Sandy made these first three maps. So this is total population change from the census years 2010 and 2020. This comes from the US Census Bureau, downloaded directly. But what we've done is put these two census years together to do some simple arithmetic and see where the population has changed. So in this map, she's taken census blocks. So you can zoom in with these tools here. Census blocks are these individual blocks, and aggregated them to neighborhood. And when you click on any of them, it will tell you what the population was and what it is, or was in 2020. So this legend here shows that the green means an increase in population, yellow means a decrease. And with that, census also collects information on race. So let me let this load here. Okay, so she's done the same thing, aggregate by neighborhood. And this is the change in the Black population. So the one thing that obviously stands out is how it's decreased, particularly on the peninsula. And so this color scale is for the number, but when you click on a neighborhood, it gives you the percent as well. And one thing that's interesting, so here on the west side, the total population increased pretty dramatically, and the Black population decreased. So that turns into a pretty big swing in the percentage. And the reason I point out clicking on it for the percentage is the Black population went down in almost all of these neighborhoods. But in this one, the number went up, but the percent actually went down. And the same is true in these neighborhoods out in West Ashley. The number went up, but the percent went down. So that's kind of to highlight the importance of interacting with it, clicking on everything, and hopefully you can learn something from it. So this map is the same kind of idea, but with the Hispanic population. And there again, when you click on a neighborhood, it'll tell you the numbers and the percent. So with these ones, it looks like there's an increase in a lot of neighborhoods, but when you click on them, you see that the numbers are relatively low. And that brings me to another point. You know, the census data, they collect this every 10 years. And the data is only as good as how they can collect it. So they really do their best to count everybody, but obviously that's not possible. So it's important to remember that when you're going through all this. So this next map, Robert made, and this is actually at the block level, the Black percentage of Black residents. And this is a swipe map. So we've got 2010 on the left side and 2020 on the right side. And the first thing you notice is a pretty dramatic decrease in the blocks that were majority African-American. And here again, you can click on any of these and get the numbers on them. So that, there we go. Yeah, obviously downtown, there's a pretty big change. And then if we move over to West Ashley, there's a similar pattern, but not quite as dramatic. But yeah, you interact, zooming in, clicking around like you would on any other map. This next map I created, this is a neighborhood change, which this methodology came out of Los Angeles. We didn't, we're not statisticians, so we didn't come up with how you do this, but if you want more information on it, you can click on this link. But neighborhood change, it looks at these 6 different metrics that are all possible indicators of gentrification. So they're income, education, the percent of white residents, cost of rent, and household size. And they're all weighted a little differently. So, income and the cost of rent are heavier weighted than something like household size. But this color scale shows you what each of these mean. They have an index number, but the number is less important than just seeing if it's changed a lot or a little. And then any of these you can click on and see the breakdown. So the low to high income ratio, this one's a little complicated, but basically it's the ratio of low income to high income and how that changed. And another thing, this one is not from the census years 2010 and 2020. This is American Community Survey, which is another product the census makes, but it uses a period of time. So it's 2010 to 2014 versus 2015 to 2019. So it's looking at a lot more factors than just the population and the race. It's got all these different metrics that they measure. So the low to high income ratio, essentially what you need to know about that is if it's a negative number, that means the income has gone up in the area. The rest of these are pretty self-explanatory, but things like household income and rent, in a lot of these areas, it's striking how much those have gone up, particularly rent. And as a renter, that's, I guess, not all that surprising to me. I'm pretty aware of it. But yeah, I invite you to visit this one and click around, and then maybe check out the link and see how it all came together. So this next map is the same idea on the right side, but on the left is a rent burden household, which means households that are spending 30% or more of their income on rent. And there's a legend here in the lower left. So the bluer ones are decrease in the number of rent burdened households. And we were surprised by this because these high change neighborhoods seem to be less rent burdened. And so what we speculate that might be because higher income residents are moving in and are less affected by the cost of rent. Again, that's just speculation, but that could be what's going on with that. And this one, again, you can click on any of the census tracts and see this breakdown, the numbers of rent burden, the percent, and then these owner occupied mortgage burden. So those are the maps on this racial equity story map. As I mentioned, there's some other tools in here that you can visit, and there are other story maps, but definitely go through this and read it. It's got a lot of great information. One of those is this. Let me scroll up this way. Displaced communities. So I'm going to show you that one now. urban displacement in Charleston, South Carolina. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to our very own Becca Hopkins for this wonderful watercolor. She's a manager of neighborhood services. So these maps, okay, this is loading funny. Let me reload it. So Jim, our planner Jim, has really put together a great history of urban renewal and urban displacement. Once again, I'm not going to read through all of it, but I do want to show you the mapping component. So this is old imagery, and Jim also dug this up. I believe this map is from 1957, but what we've done is go through these areas, historically Black communities, and overlaid the highway footprint. So this is current. This is 1957, and we've got some resident quotes and just a little bit of information about all of them. But I invite you to check this out. I'm not going to go through all of it, but this shows, you know, it's pretty striking how many, when you look at how many households were affected by these projects. This is the crosstown that we're all familiar with. And then here at the bottom, this tool lets you explore everything on your own. So when you get to it, you click on it to be able to interact with it, and you can scroll in and out. I'm just using the scroll wheel like you would on any other map. But I've got some instructions here on the right. You turn on a layer. So these are all these different historical imagery layers. We can turn the highway layer off. And then this swipe feature will have the current imagery on the right and the historical on the left. So you can navigate around town. I think all of us really have spent probably a little too long playing with these old maps, because it's just kind of wild to look at everything, how much it's changed. What used to be, you know, agricultural, now subdivisions. But then everything that's highlighted in the story map, you can bookmark and go to directly. Anytime you click on any of those, you got to turn the swipe back on. And then again, you can turn this highway back on. But yeah, I invite you guys to explore all this stuff on your own. There's a lot of information in here, and I want to thank Jim again for putting the content together. And with that, I am going to quit sharing. Thank you.
Am I up next? I'm sorry, I don't have the schedule in front of me.
I think we're going to look at the racial equity timeline
Oh,
there as
okay.
well. Amber, do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, please. So another aspect of this story map includes a racial equity timeline. The city was a part, or is a part of a group that's sponsored by the Philadelphia Federal Reserve. It's called Reinventing Our Communities. And so we've been working with this group for almost a year. Part of that project included the creation of a timeline. So we were able to take that timeline and turn it into a mapping tool. So you can go through the dates and then see the points on the map. I didn't have anything to do with that because that's way above me. But I'm really grateful for the people in the group that were able to put this together, take that timeline and turn it into something visual that you all can click through. I don't know, Chloe, do you want to add anything about the process?
No, nothing to add for this. And I'll just go while I'm still sharing the screen and kind of tie us up with the tour of this, and then pass it to Jim to wrap up this presentation. So the urban displacement story map that Casey showed and the timeline that Amber just went through, those are both featured in this racial equity in the city of Charleston story map. So you can click to those from here. We will be, this started as one story map, and it grew into 3. And we hope to be adding more to this information. And really, the focus of this story map is first to acknowledge how race has shaped Charleston, and how specifically how local government has played a role in segregating Charleston, and how past decisions and practices have led to racial disparities in our community today. So this is looking at that history and what are those impacts today. I'm going to scroll to something here that I want to, where did it go? Oh, here. So one thing that we're excited to do next, that you'll be able to access from here, as well as from our open data portal, is last year we looked at, or we learned that in our records management, we have the original maps that were made for the 1931 report of City of Charleston Planning and Zoning Commission, which was essentially the first comprehensive plan that the city hired consultants Morris and Knowles to do, and that created the blueprints for our first zoning ordinance. And there were a lot, these 36 by 48 rolled maps on rolled linen paper that the majority of which had never been scanned or digitized in any way. And they were just rolled up, sort of gathering dust in a back storage room somewhere. And these maps have the, we're excited to learn a lot from them once we get them scanned, digitized. What they show is the what was factoring into the foundations of our first zoning ordinance. And I'm going to just open this here really quickly. This is from the report that accompanied the maps. And this is just blatantly, the language in here is blatantly discriminatory. It's talking about how there's a decline in Black population in certain areas of the city, which was only the peninsula at that time, and how that should be encouraged. And it says exactly how the city can encourage that continued loss of Black population in certain areas of the city. And I'll go back up to the banner image for the story map. This is the legend of one of the maps that explicitly outlines, this is for future, this is the city, this is the legend from the general map for this, it's like the city plan general map in 1931, showing where future white residence districts should be, where future colored residence districts should be. These terms weren't used in the zoning ordinance itself, because that was ruled unconstitutional at that time, or about 10 years prior. But we suspect that we will find some similarities between this map and the zoning map, and we're excited, may be too positive sounding of a word, but we're very curious to be able to bring those maps on into our software to be able to overlap them and analyze those connections, and then that will be available and open to the public as well. So just wanted to highlight how this is really a work in progress. This is a first step. And sorry for all the scrolling here. I hope I'm not making anybody dizzy. We'll get past this. So we've highlighted a couple of other tools that Casey already went through, other ways that we are analyzing racial equity through data and other issues, street tree canopy, social vulnerability, looking at climate change and resilience. This is the racial bias audit tracking dashboards. So we've highlighted a few of those. We're going to be adding more as we develop, as we ask more of these questions and get more data and through a racial equity lens. And on our open data portal, there's an icon that will show, actually, let me see, do I have the homepage up? Yes. So on the open data portal, which Robert will go through more later, there's a racial equity tab that you can click on, and it will show all of these tools that we're compiling that we'll be adding to over time. And so I'm going to stop sharing and let Jim wrap us up.
Thanks a lot. So I was just trying to reply to the latest question in our chat, which is how the city is going to use this information. And so it kind of segues perfectly into what I am here to talk about and kind of wrap up our presentation. So hopefully this will answer that question. And so, you know, we realize, especially as you're clicking through this map tool, or these 3 map tools really, and all the open data that we have available, that this information is can be really, it maybe can leave you feeling hopeless, or, you know, give you a lot of anger and despair, especially for people of color, especially for people who have family that have lived here for a long time. You know, we're talking about destruction of neighborhoods for highway building, things like that. So really serious and upsetting topic. So we wanted to end this presentation by highlighting, you know, the things that we plan to do about it, and the ways that we're going to use this tool to hopefully, you know, make some lasting, impactful change to address racial disparities. And so one thing before I get started, I wanted to just acknowledge that Omar Mohammed from our team, from our zoning staff, worked on this section with me and worked on the rest of this map with us. And he is unfortunately unavailable this morning. So just wanted to let you all know that. To organize, so I want to organize kind of the actions that are coming from these tools into 2 larger buckets. So the first is going to be information sharing, and the second is policy. So I think this is addressing both of the question in the chat. So yes, we are going to be sharing this information to empower others and other people within the city organization, but also we're going to be using these tools to actually enact policy change. So within our organization, one of the things that we think this tool will be great for is to help kind of shift the culture within our organization. We have lots of different departments, city departments that are working on tons of different projects. And you know, the old adage of local government is true. We're very siloed, and we're often working independently without talking to each other. And we know that, you know, racial disparities are systemic, and they involve work from lots of different departments. And so part of this tool is going to be used to share with departments to help begin those dialogues, to help get people started thinking, you know, how does my work connect with racial equity in the city? So that's kind of the first step, is sharing that information, getting those conversations started. I think that overlaps a lot with Amber's work as our equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation manager, to help foster that kind of cultural shift. And then also, you know, we can't stop there. We need to track how these conversations are going. We need to see, you know, track how departments are responding to these discussions. Are they fruitful? Are they uncovering different things that we could pursue? You know, and what kind of metrics are we going to use to track those conversations and see, you know, are we enacting a cultural change within our organization? So, and then externally, you know, how can we make this information available to our community partners? And so I think one of this is just, you know, this being the first step and putting this out there and telling people, you know, we have these tools available. You know, encouraging our partners that we work with on issues like housing and homelessness and all the really important issues that we work on. Our community partners need to know that this information is available, and we're happy to share and collaborate to use this data. So like an example of that would be maybe a grant making organization. How can they use our mapping tool to target an intervention or to help fund a program in a specific area of the city that we think could use the money or use the program. Another aspect of this is partnering with our academic institutions, and these are often really untapped resources. You know, the city has some great research universities and people that are working with federal grants and grants from the universities on the same exact issues that we're working on. So how can we collaborate to make sure these efforts are, you know, going forward as far as they possibly can? And then so that's kind of from the information sharing, and there's lots more that I mention, but that's kind of getting us started thinking. And then from a policy standpoint, this is I think all of us in local government are here to help enact policy. So, you know, I want to highlight some things that we're already doing to help address racial disparities in Charleston. You know, first and foremost is the work of the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation, and Amber and her work. Obviously, that's the most straightforward. The report that was released last fall has, you know, dozens and dozens of really excellent recommendations for how we can address disparities, and that are you know, actually being discussed and activated within our organization. Our Department of Housing and Community Development. So we have a lot of efforts to increase the stock of affordable housing, and I think you're gonna listen to a really great presentation in a moment. So I'm not going to get super into that, but on how we're tracking, you know, those units and those projects, and how we're incentivizing affordable housing through zoning and through actual construction. And then, you know, some of the work out of the city plan, like the settlement communities mapping work that I think might be discussed in the next, maybe not. We have lots of different ways that you can learn about that work, and Chloe's kind of spearheaded that work, mapping different settlement communities around the city, and it's also in the city plan. So what needs to be done in the future? So those are things that we're doing now. What are we going to do in the future? So right now, as was mentioned, we have adopted our city plan as of a few months ago. So we have nearly every single section of the plan has specific recommendations to address racial disparities. So we know that these are systemic, you know, from natural resources all the way to land use. We have, you know, lots of different recommendations. We need to implement those. We also are going to be rewriting our zoning code. And as Chloe mentioned, our zoning code was born out of racial disparity, or we think it was. And this is a way for us to use rewrite our zoning code to actually, you know, take those on head first. So, I mean, that's really, really exciting. And that's going to be happening over the next 2 years in our departments. It's a huge effort. And then, you know, things like in resiliency planning, the Army Corps 3x3 study, you know, helping build resilient equity into those plans, and how we can protect Black and brown neighborhoods in the peninsula that you know, are going to be vulnerable to sea level rise and flooding. And then things like bicycle and pedestrian safety, expanding public transit access. So all of these need to be looked at through a racial equity lens. So I think I've gone over my time, as I usually do, but yeah, we really, really appreciate you listening to our work, and we hope that you'll make use of this, and please reach out if we can be helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim, and team. I hope you all are getting a little bit of sense of why I'm just bursting with pride today at this team and all the amazing work that they've been doing. And I'm just so glad that we're getting a chance to give them and their work some sunshine this morning, and share it with you all today. Give a moment for any additional questions that come in through the Q&A. Not seeing any. I'll give it another second before we switch gears and allow the team that developed the affordable housing dashboard to share their work. Okay, well, let's move on. Great. I mean, just amazing work done by that team. So much effort and energy, and I know that work is going to continue. I think that, yes, Chloe has shared that link. I believe if it's not already, there will be a link on the GIS homepage, and we'll also have one on the city website as well as the innovation homepage sometime today. So with that, I'm not sure who's kicking off for the affordable housing dashboard. Is it Sandy? But I'm gonna turn it over to y'all. Or is it Matt? Matt, all right.
All right, give me 1 second. I will share my screen. Does everyone see that? Great. Well, thank you, Tracy. So my name is Matt Ojala. I'm joined with Chloe Stuber and Sandy Gagne. And we're super excited to be here with you all today to share the public debut of the City of Charleston's Affordable Housing Dashboard. So this dashboard is really a long time in the making and will serve as an important tool for the city, our partners, for residents, as we collectively seek to address housing affordability. This dashboard will provide the public important information on both the existing and proposed affordable housing in the city. And Chloe and Sandy will be sharing more of those details here in a little bit. But we're really here today presenting this dashboard because this issue is a priority for Mayor Tecklenburg. Increasing the supply and availability of affordable and workforce housing is key for the future of our city. And we've worked intently to identify strategies and the resources towards this end. And Charleston has taken some important steps towards this priority in recent years. Voters overwhelmingly approved a $20 million affordable housing bond referendum, which is leveraging $100 million in additional financing to create 529 new affordable homes. Cities also enacted incentive zoning to generate affordable units and fees. And we've been monitoring this program closely and in making improvements so that we can really be addressing affordability to the best that we can. In partnership with the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation, the Palmetto Community Land Trust was established to create long-term affordable housing opportunities based in community ownership. And the city has actively acquired land expressly for the purpose of building affordable housing and has partnered to provide the gap financing necessary to enable additional affordable homes in Charleston. There are also a number of additional strategies which the city has and will continue to deploy, which are identified as part of our Housing for a Fair Charleston plan. This plan was released in early 2020 and provided us really a current state of housing affordability in the city, as well as a toolkit of over 100 recommendations for us to help to address this challenge. And these recommendations touch on policy, funding, education, and capacity building tools. And the city is continuing to implement these tools as outlined in the plan. And all of this work is happening because there is a great need for affordable housing in Charleston, and because it's a challenge that isn't getting any easier. Wages are not keeping up with housing prices in our city. And over the last decade, median rent and home sales prices have increased by 51% and 54% respectively. Meanwhile, household income has only increased by 31%. And when you examine median household income, you can see there's a huge disparity by race. The income gap between Black and white households has widened over the last decade. A large percentage of households are cost burdened by their housing expenses in the city of Charleston. Today, 42% of Charleston households are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. Moreover, neighborhoods with a majority of Black residents are more than twice as likely to be cost burden as those with the majority of white residents. And so we collectively have a lot of work to do if we're going to address our housing affordability challenges. So while there are roughly 5,000 deed restricted affordable housing units in the city and roughly 70,000 naturally occurring affordable housing units, the city's most recent comprehensive plan, which has been mentioned earlier, our city plan, has recently identified the need for an additional 16,000 units if we're going to eliminate affordability gaps by 2030. So there's a lot of work before us. Hopefully all of this information makes it clear that there is a need to have good data related to affordable housing and the need for this affordable housing dashboard that we're presenting today. Affordable housing is a priority in the city, so we need to have clear, up-to-date data in order to effectuate the change that is needed. The dashboard should also help to increase transparency around the scope of the issue and to increase education to our residents and stakeholders. So now I'm going to pass it on to Chloe.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just going to go a little bit into the background of all of what we did to pull the data together to make this dashboard possible. It took approximately 2 years to get to this point. So it's a very exciting day for us. You can go to the next slide, Matt. So to do the analysis that we did for the city plan to identify those gaps in affordable housing, we had to start with we needed a baseline number. We needed to know how much affordable housing we had in the city currently, whether that was deed restricted, meaning there's some kind of covenant on the property saying that it has to remain affordable to a certain for a certain household meeting income requirements. And then naturally occurring is just means that the current market price for it is affordable to someone making up to 120% of the area median income. But the existing affordable housing in terms of deed restricted affordable housing, that database didn't really exist, at least comprehensively. We knew that we have the Charleston Housing Authority list of their units that they have in the city. We were tracking units that the Housing and Community Development Office were producing, either that the city was developing or that the city was funding a community partner to develop. And then there are some other sources out there that were tracking other affordable housing as well that maybe the city wasn't involved with or the housing authority wasn't involved with, but it didn't exist all in one place. And as you can imagine, in all those different sources, what data was, the information on those units being tracked looked different. So it took a long time to pull that all together into one database and to clean it up, to have it all be consistent, to verify it, make sure it was correct. And then we also did additional resource so that we could track more than just the number of units. We wanted to understand who those units are affordable to. So when we talk about affordable housing, there's typically various levels of affordability. If you've heard the term workforce housing, that's housing affordable to households making between 80% and 120% of the area median income. And affordable housing can also include low income housing for folks making up to 60%, 30% of the area median income. We wanted to understand of the units that there were, or that we have currently, who are they affordable to? How long will they be affordable for? So some of these units have expiration dates of the affordability period, whether they're for sale or rental, single family, multifamily, and when they were created. So we also wanted to understand over time, how many units have we been creating over time? And also we can forecast out with those expiration dates of how many will we lose if we don't actively work to preserve those units. The next slide, Matt. So once we had that existing database in place, we needed to have a system in place to keep that up to date. And luckily, through our plan and permitting approvals processes, we do have a way to keep track of all new affordable units created in the city. But we had to put the systems in place first to do the intake, to when a developer, housing developer has committed to building affordable housing units. How do we know that? How do we track that through the system? And how do we make sure that we're collecting all the information on those units so that we can then add it to our existing affordable housing database, tracking all of those things like income eligibility, affordability period, whether it's for sale or rental, et cetera. So we created, with our IT department, created a module in our permitting plan software to track affordable housing projects. We created processes for intake, for data management, and we also had to train up staff, all the different staff that are working in permits and plans to help us keep track of that data. Next slide. I think that's actually it for me. So just to give you a sense of what goes into this, it was 2 years in the making, and we're really excited to have this tool available to us so that we can track our progress. And Sandy is now going to talk about the dashboard itself and give us a tour.
Great. My name is Sandy Gagne. I'm the GIS developer for the city, and I'm very excited that you're all here to see the official release of our affordable housing dashboard. I worked with Matt and Chloe to compile the data, and primarily I focused on the database design side of the work and bringing the data into the final dashboard after we had everything together. So after our long process that Chloe was talking about, the result was that we have 2 separate databases with information about affordable housing. We had our existing affordable housing data that now lives in our GIS data. And then we have our active affordable housing projects that are currently being built and currently in the permit process. And we track those in our permitting software, which is called EnerGov. So if you hear me say EnerGov, that's what I'm talking about. So we have all the information, which is great. It was a lot of work, and we're very excited to have it ready. And then what we needed to do was find a way to bring this information together and make it accessible to city staff and to the public. We wanted to have it in one location, so you didn't have to go to different tables or different sites or different web pages. So we decided on an interactive dashboard platform. And for that dashboard, we had 4 goals. 1, we wanted to be able to map all the locations of the existing housing as well as the projects that are in development. 2, we wanted to share a complete list of the active projects so you could see everything in one place that's going on, and have those linked to the map so you could see where they are in the city. The 3rd goal was to include some charts and graphs that put together statistics from the 2 different databases and compile things like how many properties are there being built, when were they built, how much funding was assigned to these projects, and to be able to share that information through some graphs and charts. The 4th goal, the key to making this all work, is that we wanted to make sure that everything in this dashboard automatically updates. So if somebody goes into the permit software and adds a new project that's just come online, that will show up in the dashboard and all its information. And if we take something from actively being developed and move it over to existing, once people are living there and it's a on the ground project with people living in the homes, we wanted to be able to have those changes show up as well as if anything changes in the data. If we find out that there were more housing units being built, we could go in and change that and it'll automatically show up. So with all that in mind, let's see, I think, Matt, you'll need to unshare yours first, please. Thank you. So, without further ado, I have our affordable housing dashboard for you to see. Can everyone see this dashboard here? All right, great. So what I'm going to do is do a quick walkthrough of the different components of the dashboard. And at the end of that, I will just quickly show you where on the city's website you can find it. And I'm sure someone will also throw a link in the chat so you can copy that and keep that for yourself. But to start here, I'm going to first start with the map. And the map is very exciting to us to finally be able to see everything in one location, which before we started this project, we weren't able to do. So here you can see we have 3 different colors. We have all the proposed projects, which are the ones that are in the active permit process right now. In purple, we have green for everything that's currently on the ground that people are living in, and blue, which is committed units. And I'll go through those definitions in just a little bit as we go through. So I can zoom in on this map, and I can either use these little buttons down here or just scroll on my mouse scroll wheel. And if I come in here, I can click on any of these. And if I click on existing project, the existing project just shows you the number of affordable units. We do track some other information, but for just some purposes of privacy too, we did not put people's addresses, anything like that. There are a lot of single family homes, but you can see when you click on them that they do exist and that this is a single family dwelling, has 1 unit for sale. If you click on any rental ones, you'll see how many units are there and that it's a rental property. For the active projects, you can get information, the same information about how many affordable units, what type of housing it is, some information about whether it has low-income housing tax credit, whether land was provided by the city, some information about funding if it receives funding. And then you can move around the city with the map. You're also able to come in and use the search if you wanted to search for a certain location. Say you saw something out, you're driving around, you're like, I wonder if this is an affordable housing project, and you knew an intersection you're looking at. I'm just going to pick something here. You could zoom in, or you could go to your address if you want to see what's in your neighborhood, and you can kind of click around and get information about those projects. Here's an active one. You can zoom out a little bit, see what's around the area. We also have to the left here, this is the full list of all of the projects that are currently in development. So if you know the name of one, you can go to that. And there you go here. There we go. And it'll sort of flash, get some information. You can click on it and get more information. You can see this project has 64 units that will be coming online. And that's the current list. And as these come online, like I was mentioning before, if someone goes into our permit system and adds a new one that just came into the process, that will show up here and all its information will be available as soon as we have that information. We also have a quick little legend. So you can see there are different sizes on some of these dots. This is existing housing. So you can see how many housing units are in there. But you can also get that information just by clicking on it and get an exact number. So down below, here's some of the charts that I was explaining that we're very excited to be able to put together, and for the first time have real statistics on the housing and the numbers that relate to this housing in the city. This first chart here, we can see by year how many housing units, affordable housing units, are coming online. So this year, you can look and see that they're for sale, affordable housing, there are 84, and we have about 146 rental units that should be available for people this year. We can look into the future a couple of years, see what's coming online. We have some coming up here. And then if you follow the little instructions down here and click these little arrows, you could see some other tables. This is the existing affordable housing and the year that it became affordable housing. So it kind of goes all the way back in time to early 1900s. And you can see there was affordable housing construction boom a little bit through the 40s into the 50s. And then you could see some spikes and then some level times or some plateaus, another little spike here. And this is where we are now. So we can see those patterns. It's really interesting to see for the first time. Another one. Here we have it broken out by region. And this is looking at the main regions of the city. So we have Kanehoy-Wando, Daniel Island, James, Johns Islands, Peninsula, and West Ashley. So you can see, of course, where there's more population. Historically, we have more existing units. And then you can see how it's dispersed across the city. I can zoom out there too, so you can actually see the whole city. And that gives you a visual picture of where that is. Oh, and then that does include existing and also proposed. So you can see where the future projects are being built. We have this by housing type, by multifamily, how many units are multifamily, how many are single family. We have it broken out by the area median income. So for housing, affordable housing, this is showing the income restrictions for tenants or people buying the homes. So yeah, like for this one, a 60% area median income, and then it shows for existing and proposed projects. So we have that broken out. And also have a source of funding. And this just totals source of city funding that was contributed to the projects. There. And on the right-hand side, there's some descriptions, the city's definition, how we define affordable housing, what we define as proposed units, which are the ones that are active in the permitting process now. We also do have these blue dots, which you'll see. And these are what we call committed units. They aren't actually a project that's in development yet, but through zoning action approved by City Council, there are affordable housing units that are planned, but we don't have details on the project. We don't know exactly how many. So all we know right now is the percentage of homes in that project that will be affordable housing. So that's the only information we have, but we do want to share that with you. So as these come into the system and start going through the actual permitting and construction process, we would actually show more information, put them into that proposed housing data, and they'd start showing up in these charts and being able to track them all. We do have some totals here on statistics on how much housing we still need. And you can see we do have a gap that we need to fill. And this hopefully will be out there for people to see and to start getting ideas on what can we do to bring more affordable housing online and to see where do we need it and where the gaps are. And so it's very exciting to us to have this out there so everyone knows where this housing is and what's going on. And let me show you real quickly where you can find this. So this is the main city website. The quickest way to get to it is to go to the online services, and then you'll see the interactive maps section, GIS and interactive maps. If you come here, you'll see all of our maps, which I think you'll see a little bit more from Robert soon, but we have just added the new affordable housing dashboard here. So you can get to it from this maps, GIS and interactive maps page. And with that, if anyone has any questions, that'd be great. But I will stop sharing my screen so I can pass this over to the next person.
Well, thank you so much, team. That was really awesome. Two amazing, I think, applications that have, come to life out of both need and using open data, which I think is super exciting. And I'll give folks attendees a minute to send any questions you might have about the affordable housing dashboard. Not seeing anything come in. So I think it's time to turn this back over to Robert. Let's see. Robert, it's all you with your fancy slide decks.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. So I'm just going to quickly show the open data portal, how to get to it, and maybe explore some of the data sets that's there that you might not be familiar with. Easiest way to get there is Google. There's a couple of ways to get to it. The GIS website, there's an open data webpage on the city website, and Tracy has a section on her website, and all these links will get you to the same place. So this is what it looks like. Open data. So this is your splash screen. Starts up the top here. There's a place where you can submit an open data request. Is there a data set the city, the city has this data, and you think it should be easily available? Make a request, and that we'll see if we can accommodate that. And if there's problems with the data, that I think it's already been mentioned that there was a question about, I think it was a new construction dashboard, that it was this week. I noticed that 2022 wasn't there, so I had to add it. So if you find a problem with an app or problems with the data, let us know. That often that we don't know something's wrong until somebody tells us. So that's important. And I think I mentioned this before, but we got in bold here. One of the most commonly requested items is parcel data or other types of county tax assessment data. And unfortunately, we can't share that the counties have different rules. Berkeley County actually sells their data. So we can't have that parcel data here. So you have to go to the counties to get that. Then, of course, we've got the disclaimer that, as Tracy said, it's scary sometimes putting data out there because, no data is perfect. So we've got a little disclaimer here. And then you get down to the actual data categories that you can search here or just browse by categories. And I think we kind of looked at most of this today, but the racial equity link isn't on the GIS website yet. That was kind of wait till it was live to put it there, but you can get to all these apps through the open data portal. So I just clicked on, oops, no, I didn't. Yeah. So all the various parts of the presentation are available in this racial equity group. There's several story maps that we didn't go into detail that I encourage everybody to come look at these. The Street Tree Canopy app is really cool, that it does analysis by the amount of street trees in our neighborhoods. And also links to some tools to help identify places to plant trees. And then that racial equity story map is linked right here. So to get to it today, this is how you would get to it. You come to the actual open data portal. And that's an important thing to note, that it's not just data here, that we can put apps in here too. And that more and more, and we've just started doing this, is we're putting apps links in here too. So it's not only a place to get to data, but it's a place to discover apps. I think I kind of mentioned it before. Our GIS website, when it was built, we just had a handful of apps, and it was kind of static. It didn't change much. And it's a hand edited HTML page, so it's kind of tedious to add new items to it. And what's happened over the years is we've got now just dozens of important tools and apps that maybe there aren't links on that site. So we're going to try to fix that this year. But another option to discover stuff is to come here, look for things. So now I'll go back. Yep, housing section, the housing dashboard's available there. And just show you just some interesting data. Of course, all of our base data is in here, all of our street center lines, zoning, police. The police actually have their own section of open data, and they share a lot of data that they put a lot of work into their website. That'd be a whole nother presentation, but yeah, they've got tools. If you're not aware, all the crime in the city that you can sort by type, date range. It is interesting data to explore. Back, and then new this week that I was kind of excited to get it out there. I added a livability section. This is brand new open data that livability manages our horse carriage tour industry for Charleston, and they are very active at being transparent, and they do a good job with their data. That's a department that I like to do projects for, because their projects really take fruit. So just some neat examples of kind of transparency and open data that the city's doing, that citizens would often wonder where the horse carriage tours are. They were worried that they were concentrated in one area. But the way they do this is as each tour comes to the start of the tour, livability records all the information about the tour, the company, the driver, the horses, the number of passengers, and some other various things. And then they assign them randomly an area to go. And this makes it so all the horse tours just don't go to the most popular places. And you can look at this in real time. So right now, these are the horse carriage tours that are out. And then the red X's here are where the horses are relieving themselves. That's a whole other thing that they manage, that a company is contracted to go sanitize these, we call them spill sites. So these spills will all be sanitized. So anyways, it just lets residents, especially the residents that live in these neighborhoods, to really see what's going on. You know, are there more tours in my neighborhood than there should be? And are the horse spills being cleaned up? That's kind of a little side project. And as of this week, we've got the trip log. So it's all 130,000 horse carriage tours that have occurred, and I think maybe they started in late 2018. So there's records for every single one. It records the company, how many people, and the horses, and the date they started and the date it stopped. And then for the heck of it, we're sharing all the sanitation alerts that maybe there's something in this data that a researcher could come up with. I don't know, but I think it's interesting. So that is all of our spills that you can see. They're kind of concentrated on the intersections. That kind of makes sense. But I don't know. It's just that we're gonna more and more to start releasing as much data as we can into the portal here. And that's a case where I don't know if it's useful, but that it could be that it seems like a lot of people are coming to this portal and getting data. So maybe that's be useful data to somebody. What else is in here? Yeah, just another livability one that's interesting. Oh no, that's the same one. Yeah, this is also on Livability's public facing website. So this is real time, and it keeps tabs on the contracted company that's sanitizing these spills. It's got how many they've done, how many are active, and the average time it's taken them to get to them all. So that's a way to kind of see what's going on. So now, yeah, let's look at some actual data and what you can do with it. Yeah, so these are those the new construction permits that these renew as of last week. So you click on one and it brings you to the map, and then you have some different options to do stuff with the data. I can't click there. This is challenging. You click the full details and it gives you more information. And this is a lot of this stuff is a little bit still work in progress that we're really trying to flesh out the summaries and the metadata about the data. And it's going to improve over time. So you can get the summaries, and then most importantly, you can download the data, and you have lots of different options. You can just get the table if you just want to look at it in Excel. You can get the CSV. If you want to put it in Google Maps, it's got a KML. Shapefile is GIS data, and it's I think it's even open source now. So it's just a standard GIS format that any type of GIS software will be able to read a shapefile. And then GeoJSON is an open source format that if that's your flavor of choice, it's there for you. And then what else can we do? Oh yeah, more. Thought there was a section. Yeah, down here. There's more options to work with the data. I actually don't use the site that much. So you can create a map. And this is ArcGIS Online. I think you can do some stuff for free on ArcGIS Online, but it won't let you save the map. But you can play with the data. And then obviously even added into a story map for you. But here's the actual API endpoints. So if you were a developer, you can take these REST endpoints and plug them right into your program, and you'd have the City of Charleston's new construction data in your app. Data source, this is kind of the raw fast back end. This is the REST endpoint for the data. It's just all kind of technical stuff, but it just shows you that it's to show people what we have and maybe let you look at it in a map. But one of the most important parts is it gives the data to developers that can make their own tools and maybe solve some of the city's problems. that a lot of things come out of the university. So we want to give them as much data access as we can. Yeah, that's I think that's all I have. You can look at the table and filter and sort and work a little bit with the data right in the portal here. So yeah, I guess just to summarize, we kind of unveiled 2 finished products today, and I would say our open data portal isn't quite 100%. It's always going to be a work in progress, and a lot of work has gone into it just in the last 6 months. So be patient. There's going to be probably some items that aren't fully described, or there might be some stuff that's not quite there yet. So just keep coming back. There'll be more data added over time. That part of the open data project for the city is, as Tracy said, all the departments are going through their data and cataloging it, and we're doing the same. That we had a pretty good list of our data, but we're expanding on the stuff with the data that we collect on our data, and it's going to make it a lot easier for us to publish stuff here that we're evaluating. Is this data that should be open? Is it in a good enough state to share it? Is it up to date? How often should we update it? That we've got a lot of data that we just kind of download when we need it, but instead of doing that, we're putting stuff on a schedule. So because other people might need that data up to date. So anyways, those are some of the things that we're doing. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
I know Chloe's been really good at trying to help us monitor the Q&A. Is there anything that we haven't answered that's come in that we need to address?
Oh, let me show real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
But this isn't more exciting data that I know Scott Harris is here, and he might find some of this interesting. That we're starting to share data that's collected through TideEye, that's collecting all the tide and weather data every 2 minutes. So this is a pretty neat data set that we put together. It's our road closure data with tide and weather data attached to it. So you can look at a road closure and see if it was caused by rain or the tide. So yeah, here we've got one rain 4.5 inches in one day. So that one was obviously rain. And it's got I can't scroll. Oh yeah, event name, there it is. Yeah, it's got so it's got the tide, the weather, and then it summarizes in a column the categories. Was it high tide with no rain? Was it high tide with rain? Was it low tide with rain? So it really starts to explain why some of our roads floods and when. And it'll tell you if the closure was associated with a storm. So in this case, this 4.5 inches of rain was Irma on top of a 9.8 tide. So that's not good for the peninsula. That the lower peninsula experienced extreme flooding during that day. So that data is there, and it really helps you start to get a sense of where the city floods and why. How do I get out of here? What else? And just another data set that's in there that might help if you're doing a presentation or if you're trying to, explain the threat of flooding that the city has experienced in the past. Is what am I doing? Yeah, there it is. So well, yeah, I guess that this is it. Yeah, I'm having trouble with the dates. Some of this is all work in progress. That the way ArcGIS Online deals with dates is a little problematic. That these are supposed to be just the date. So these are all the dates that the city experienced flooding, at least through our road closures, and then the conditions that existed that day. So this isn't looking at every road closure. This is looking at the days that had a road closure and the tide and weather conditions that existed that day and the total number of closures that day. So that you can do lots of neat stuff with this data. You can start to look at what are our high days and what were those conditions. And then you can use things like tie-dye to look into the future. Are we going to get those conditions again, and how to prepare for it? So just wanted to point out that data is there, because that's another one that we just kind of put there, but didn't tell a whole lot of people about it. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. I didn't see any more questions come in. So I guess we're kind of at a good time. So I'll go ahead and shift over. And if questions come in, we will address them as they come up. So y'all get to end the day with me. So let me share my screen a little bit. How I envision, what I hope will happen next year is we'll get a lot of great feedback, and I'd really love to have a kind of maybe a breakout session that's for those that might be developers or researchers, data analysts, data scientists, to really kind of talk about, ways that you can use the data, use open data to build your own applications, build your own dashboards and whatnot. So I'm gonna kind of walk through just some screenshots of kind of really how easy it can be to actually do that. So, but I do feel this deserves a warning. So there is some, technical slides that some of you may find disturbing. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and forge on ahead. So a couple of terms we've already thrown out at you that might need some just further description. Robert mentioned API. What does that mean? API stands for Application Programming Interface. And then a URL, so Uniform Resource Locator. Basically, that's just a web address. So it's a web address that gives you access to basically real-time data to provide the background for an application. So the first thing I wanted to do is really walk you through how you can create a custom URL that gives you only the data you need from the resources on our open data portal. So I actually have the new construction permits as well. Robert and I just happened to sync up on that, which is great. I love when that happens. But this is actually a really easy thing to do, which is kind of cool. So obviously the full table has almost 12,000 records in it, right? You may not want all 12,000 records. You may just want a subset or looking for certain fields and things like that. And so getting to that information is actually fairly simple. So down at the bottom of the screen, this is what you're going to see when you actually go to the site of a particular data set. And down at the bottom, there's this I want to use this. And so if you click on that, it opens up this kind of information. You go a little further down. And so Robert touched on a lot of these, but what we're going to look at here is view the API resources that are available. So when you click on that, you get these options for a geo service, which is native Esri URL. So it provides the output in kind of a native Esri format, or a GeoJSON, which Robert already mentioned, which is really kind of the general open source format. So you can take this a little bit further. Obviously, these links are going to get you all of the data, which is fine. That may be what you want, and that's great. So you can do that easily by copying those links. But if you want to dig down a little deeper, you can actually go to this Open in API Explorer to create a custom query that meets your needs. So it opens this API Explorer window. And so this starts to, dig in a little. So we can actually create filters on the data. And so what do I mean by that? So if you click on that, it gives you a drop down of all the fields, and then you can type in certain keywords you might be looking for. And so you can add that to the query. You can also turn fields on and off. So if you don't want all the fields that actually come with a data set, you can customize that as well. Say you're only looking for a couple of fields. There's no reason to pull all that data, especially if you're getting all 12,000 records. So if you scroll down on that window a little bit, you can also create a spatial index that only pulls data for a certain area. So you can specify that, and just through this drop down, you can create an envelope. And the best way to do that, the easiest way, is to click on Add Extent from Map, and it'll let you actually draw on the map and actually create that box or that window or envelope, if you will, and it'll just pull data from that particular area of the city. So a couple of other options you have here. If you're just looking at data, if you're not actually going to map this information, you can have it so it doesn't return all the geometry. That geometry is pretty extensive in kind of the amount of resource and information that's pulled through. So you can make it simpler just by turning that off and just get the data itself. If you only need IDs you're just kind of looking, you don't really need all the details of everything, you can have it return the IDs only, so you're not going to get all of the information. If you're looking for summary, say you're just pulling a summary, you want to understand a summary of the data. So you can combine that with, a filter and then return account only, and it's just going to give you a summary of the information. And if you really know what you're doing, you can actually specify a specific spatial reference. And I'm not going to go into that. That's for a whole other topic. So then what you can do is you can click on this Get Response, and down here below, it's going to give you a sample of what that output will look like. So you can kind of scroll through and make sure that you're getting, what you expect to get from those filters and things that you just selected. Once this looks the way that you want it to, you can just click Copy to Clipboard, and it'll actually just make a copy of this custom URL that you have now built. So I think that's a pretty great tool. So you know that you don't have, especially if you're building an application and you're concerned about speed, this really allows you to build exactly what you want or pull only what you need for your application. So I'm going to just show you just briefly a couple of examples of how you might then use that custom URL or the existing URL if you want all of the data. So I'm going to show you Power BI, and then I'm just going to show you another little clip from Jupyter Notebook as well. So Power BI, this is really the screen that comes up when you open a new Power BI project. It always wants you to first, go out, tell it where to get the data that you want to utilize. So here I've selected Other, and then just selected Web, because we're going to provide a web address. And in that pop-up window, you would just paste the URL that you got from the API Explorer in our open data portal. When you click OK, it opens up this looks kind of scary, but I thought that this was important to show for those of you that might be Power BI users, is it opens up this Power Query Editor is what it's called. And the way that the data comes through, it basically has the first record, if you will, is kind of a mother record, if you will, and it has some metadata about all the data. And so in order to get to where you can actually start to visualize, you have to take a couple of steps to actually so Power BI recognizes that as individual records. And the way to do that is any GIS data is going to have this features column. And the way that you kind of pull all those features out is just click on this expand to new rows. And so just to kind of highlight that a little bit. So when you click this drop down, hit expand to new rows, and it's going to bring all of those in and show them as records. And you kind of have to do this basically twice. And so we would do expand to new rows again. At this point too, you can actually turn fields on and off that you may or may not want in your Power BI application. So in this instance, I actually expanded both the attributes of all of the features as well as for the geometry, because I did want to have the ability to map those features as well. And so once you actually get to where you're seeing all of the data and all the records that you expect to see, you would just hit close and apply, and it'll open up your regular table view. And so you now have a simple table that you can work with in Power BI. And I just zoomed in a little bit on that so you can see that now, yes, we're seeing all of the records that come from those new permits. And I did this in really, it's taken me longer to tell you how I did it than it took me to actually do this in Power BI. So this is a very, very simple process. And once you have it looking like this in Power BI, then you can build whatever visualizations you want based off of that simple table that's now in your Power BI application. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Power BI stores that URL as the source. And so you can actually, once you build your application, you can tell Power BI how often to go out and refresh that data. So if you want it to refresh every day or every hour, you can tell Power BI to do that, and it's going to go out and re-get that data for you and rebuild it for you, and it'll update your visualizations. And so I was able to actually create these very simple little pie chart, as well as this little bar chart here that shows you permits issued by year from the data that Robert showed earlier, in just a matter of a couple of minutes. And then I can share this and publish it and also make this public as well. Let's see. Now this might look a little scary, but for those of you who might be familiar with Jupyter Notebook, this is just a simple notebook where I'm using Python 3. You can also use R if you're into using R for some of our maybe stats people, data science people out there. And it's just some of the libraries that I've used for this. This is only a couple lines of code, but there are a couple libraries that are in use here. So we've got Pandas, which is a really good data analysis library, and then GeoPandas, which actually expands the regular pandas to actually use spatial data, and then Shapely for kind of interpreting the geo data itself, and then this matplot library for actually doing the plotting. So you can see, I'm going to zoom in here really quick. these are really, these just few lines of code are all I'm actually using to grab the data from. So you can see I'm importing these libraries, telling Jupyter Notebook that I want to use them. Then I'm adding the URL. So this is the URL that I created using that API Explorer. And then I'm just telling Jupyter Notebook to go out and read that file. And I do some output here that you can see in the background where we're actually seeing some of the actual data itself. I'm telling it, just give me 5 records. I just want to make sure that this is the right data that I want to look at. And then it actually can produce a plot of that data as well. So again, just a few couple lines, but then you've got access to that data to build analysis from. And I know Robert showed this already, but also on the Open Data Home, as well as the GIS portal home, you can submit a request anytime through this link. And I should also mention that if you already have an account, if you submitted requests through the Citizen Help Desk before and have an account, if you use the same email account in this submittal, it'll actually add this request to your account, so you'll be able to track the progress. But please use that. Let us know if there's something that we're missing that you'd like to see, or if you find errors in data. This is definitely the best way to let us know, so that we can respond and fix any issues that you all help us discover along the way. And I think that I didn't want to overwhelm everyone with too much technical stuff, but definitely I would love, if there's interest next year, to really have a session that's really built for developers, researchers, and the like, that are really interested in being able to use our data in real time to build tools, build applications, and build dashboards. We really want to see this data be put to use. And so I'll open up for some final questions, but I also want to put this up there so that everyone can take a minute to let us know what you thought about our program today. Hopefully you all learned something, but we really want to know how we can make it better for everyone for next year's Open Data Day, and things that we can be doing throughout the year to engage those of you that are interested in really keeping up with our progress. So let me see, let me open the Q&A. It looks like we might have, so the question is, could we download MapNet apps on our phone? I think the simple, yes, you can use all of these, all the applications should be HTML5 compliant and should be able to be viewed on your phone. But they're not necessarily apps. You would actually view them through a browser that's on your phone, if that makes sense. Robert, do you have any additional comments on that?
Yeah, that's right. Most of these apps are just they're super mobile friendly web apps, but to make it behave like a native app, you can pin these to your home screen. So something like tie-dye works really well if it's pinned to your home screen. And then the city does have a native mobile app that you can access a few of our mapping resources through there. So that would be a native app. But yeah, most of these are just they're mobile friendly websites.
Any other questions? Hopefully I didn't scare everybody with my Jupyter Notebook.
I liked it.
Okay, well, I think hopefully we've answered all of your questions. And like I said, please take a minute to it's a really short survey. So please take a moment to fill it out and let us know how we did and what we can do to improve. And thanks so much for joining us on this first ever Open Data Day program for the City of Charleston. And I really want to thank all of the panelists that are here today and the amazing work. I'm so excited that you all got to share that work and share the fruits of all your amazing labor with everyone this morning. So thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Anybody else have any closing thoughts? All right, well, great. Thanks so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Get outside and enjoy the beautiful Charleston weather. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks a lot.